Hello and welcome to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and as the founder of the Bold Life Movement and a fellow coach for more than 7 years, I know the challenges that many of you face when launching or growing your coaching business. And I'm here to pull back the curtain on the coaching industry and help you overcome roadblocks to make the impact you were born to make. Each week, I'll be interviewing successful coaches from every corner of the industry to share exactly how they have managed to generate massive impact and income. From strategy to psychology, we cover it all. This show is presented to you by Transformation Academy, a global marketplace of courses and coaching certifications. So whether you are already part of our epic community or you're brand new to this show, if you're ready to learn what it takes to turn your passion for service into a profitable business, then keep listening. You are in the right place. Welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. This is episode 21 with Marcello LaGreca. Marcello is best known for healing his own crippling anxiety and helping his clients to do the same. That's right, he is what's called an anxiety integration coach. And in today's episode, we talk about everything from psychedelics for spiritual evolution to internal family systems to how he was able to amass a following on YouTube, starting to share his journey way before coaching ever even came into the picture. So if you are someone who has ever suffered from anxiety or who struggles to share their own journey as a way to get clients, then today's episode could be really transformational for you. If you want to get even more access to all the resources that we talk about, go ahead over to theprofitablecoach.com/021 where you can get all the show notes. Without further ado, please welcome the one and only Marcello LaGreca. Hello. Welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. Today I have with me Marcello LaGreca, an old friend and wonderful coach. Welcome to the show, Marcello.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
I'm really excited because Marcello and I go way back. We lived in Bali at the same time. We've been on the coaching journey somewhat, in tandem. And it's been cool to see the different opportunities that have come onto Marcello's plate. And we were, as old friends do, we were starting to dive in before I hit the record button. So I would love to just sort of pick up where we left off. We were getting into what are some of the modes, the modalities, the things that you've tried over the years to further your own healing so that you can be a better coach?
Yeah, well, the list is extensive, right? Because for different parts of our lives, we need different things. The one that was coming up within our conversation prior to this has been a modality that I have used infrequently, but in the times that we got to spend time together, it has been extremely transformative. And that's why I think it's gaining so much popularity right now. I'm just going to keep building the anticipation. So you're like, what is he talking about? But that is psychedelics. And in particular, I have sat with psilocybin, aka mushrooms. And that has been quite powerful in introducing me to the deeper parts of myself. Another massive area of my healing journey is also something that you and I have in common, which is Tony Robbins, which is a whole psychedelic journey in itself, to go to one of his events. And just the other things that are, in there with breath work, meditation, things of that nature.
Cool. So what was it that we were about to discover about your psychedelic experiences when I was like, we need to hit the record button?
Yeah. So I'm really excited to share. I had to be patient to share this. So last year, exactly a year ago, I was feeling called to do either a Vipassana 10-day silent retreat, which I have yet to do, but I have been meditating, twice daily every day for 7 years now. Or do a psychedelic journey with my coach during that point in time. And, I'm getting myself all prepared. I haven't really done a big journey before. I'm like mapping out how much I'm going to do. It's like feeling edgy, the whole thing. And myself and my coach, we landed on like, why don't we, do about 3 grams, right? It's a relatively good sized dose. It's
Mm-hmm.
not too high. It's not too low. So we did about 3 grams. And what happened in that experience was not what I had anticipated. I thought I was going to have all these visuals, dive deep into my soul, see the universe, like all the things that you read about, right? Or that you see about in the movies. Well, I had no visual experience. I had no auditory experience. I had actually what seemed like nothing happened within this very structured ceremony. But what did happen in that experience, which is really the road that we're all on as coaches, guiding people there, and as just humans slowly evolving there, is I got to experience a distinctive experience between who I truly am, my core self, and what I like to call in my practice the conditioned self, or what like internal family systems therapy likes to call like your managers and your firefighters and your exiles. And
I
so
was
I'm
just
in the
going to
middle of this
ask you
experience.
if you were familiar with IFS, by the
Yeah.
way. So I must have read your mind.
Yeah. I mean, IFS is a massive modality that has also been part of my experience, and that I use within my coaching as well. But yeah, so in the middle of this experience, I'm like terrified of what is going to potentially show up. And in the moment of experiencing some of that fear, I had this like I don't even know, like turn point, like experience where I was just like, wait, but I'm here for it. Like we can handle whatever comes up. And in that exact moment, it felt like like an energy moved out of my body and sat next to me. And it was like I got to see the fear and the conditioned part of myself from my core self, but like not just see it, but feel it.
Wow.
Again, no visual experiences, no auditory experiences, just kind of like a feeling.
Like an
Yeah, and it was also
energetic
very subtle.
sensation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I often feel
And so
like
that was
our
big.
core self is more subtle than we want it to be. And that's sort of where the perks of something like meditation come into play, because it gets us quiet enough to listen to the whisper, to listen to the voice that's always there, or the feeling that's always there if you're more sentient. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got exactly what you needed, right?
Exactly what I needed. I got exactly what I needed. And it was totally outside the expectations that I was having for that experience.
So what has
Yeah.
shifted in your life since that moment?
Oof. A lot. A significant amount. With all of the modalities that I have tapped into and learned from over the years, I have really been kind of teed up now into an experience where I'm learning to really inhabit my body. So, like we have this very intellectualized type of society where we're constantly trying to like reframe things with our mind and control our thoughts. And it's very much like a top-down process. And I did that for a very, good period of my life. So since that period of time, there has been an acceleration of my experience of being in my body. And when I say being in my body, I mean like actually feeling life instead of thinking life. And actually, there was a couple of years ago when you and I had a psychedelic experience together where we were in Maine, and there was this experience of energy, and I was like, yeah, like, guys, I don't see it or feel it. And you were like, well, you're working with it. And we talked about like really being able to feel instead of like control with our head or try to like, manipulate with our head. It's like, I finally get what you were talking about. Like, I finally get it. It's like, yeah, like I'm here and I feel the experiences of what's right now.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, please.
Does that include allowing and feeling the emotions of the moment as well? And were you not doing that before, or is this a different sensation?
I was feeling the emotions before, most definitely, but I was intellectualizing them significantly more. So it's like the term think feel is not the same as just feel. It's like there's an aspect of feeling, but like for the most part, it's like kind of being stunted by thinking.
Yeah.
Instead of like literally just feeling, whoa, like that was a very blissful experience, or whoa, like that was a very like heartfelt or anger inducing experience, like letting myself feel it instead of immediately thinking about it and trying to solve it.
Yeah. And rationalize it and compartmentalize it and justify it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And I think that that's important for people to hear, because if we as coaches are not fully embodied, we're not as much of service to our clients as someone who has the capacity to hold emotion, to be present with what is, to let the mind have its voice, but not, buy into everything that it's saying, because we want to be able to witness that in our clients too, and distinguish between when they're in their body and when they're not.
Right. Yeah, very well said. It's like you can only go and guide somebody as far as you've been with yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well said.
I want to talk about IFS for a second. And one of the things, quick side note, one of the things I love about this show is that there's no script. Like, I did not know what Marcello and I were going to talk about today, and yet whatever comes up organically, I feel is what is meant to be shared and what the listeners need to hear. And so I encourage anyone listening to trust that same process in your coaching sessions. Like, it's good to have key questions, it's good to have an agenda, but trust that if it veers off to another direction, like, that's okay. And it's all valuable. So in terms of IFS, I recently have gone down this rabbit hole because, and anyone who's been in my my coaching programs recently know that I'm a pretty open book. I share what's going on in my life so that we can learn from it together and evolve from it together. And I had a partnership end really suddenly, which sent me down the IFS rabbit hole, because I was like, I need to understand why this person is literally no longer there. And so when you talk about being in the body versus not, that was actually my experience. Was the essence of this person had vacated their body. And so with the deeper understanding of IFS, I was like, oh, this very particular protector is in charge right now, and that is necessary for him to feel safe, to not be here, so that whatever part of him, whatever exile is getting protected, can go be in the back and feel safe. And I think that that awareness was such a gift for me that, I encourage people listening to find tools like IFS to deepen your own evolution, so that in coaching sessions, you have more tools for your clients. So I'm curious what led you to IFS and what some of the impacts have been.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to say, like, before going into that it's very cool that this podcast happened at the same time that you're diving so deeply into IFS, because I truly believe that IFS deserves to be the first thing that anybody learns on their healing journey. I really do. And the reason that I say that is because, like, if we don't know what our core self is, or the fact that it exists in distinction to these other parts, then we don't really know where we're headed in our healing journey. Right? It's difficult. So yeah, I just wanted to say that again. You're gonna have to remind me what your question was, because I got too passionate in my
No
response
sweat.
to what
The
you
question
said.
was what led you to internal family systems, and how has it shifted how you coach? What impact has it had?
Yes. So what led me to it was, I mean, simply my own thirst to understand anxiety. Number one, my path, just for context here, began with anxiety, and because it was like as intense as it was, like I needed answers, and that's like really how it happens with, I would say, most people who come to these conversations, or spirituality maybe in general. They're looking for answers.
Totally.
And so one of the answers that I had arrived upon was internal family systems, not necessarily doing the exact IFS work, but just being able to know about what the core self is, or what the authentic self is, in relationship to those old patterns that we picked up through those traumatic experiences of our past. And when I say traumatic, trauma can be any negative life event that just happened in a state of relative helplessness. And I want to just coin neurologist Robert Scare for giving that definition, but it gave me the distinction that I needed. And the way that it has impacted me is, it's just given me like real foundation to stand on, and not only stand on, but like really be at ease on, or build on, because it's like, it's not something that just washes away. It's not like quicksand. Quicksand is like trying to kind of just reframe things and hope that that makes us feel better. But like when we really connected with ourselves, it's like, oh, I'm standing on like firm ground,
Yeah.
So that's what led me there. And that's like really a lot of how much it's impacted my life. And I'm sure there's more rabbit holes too, but they're not popping up to me at the moment.
Yeah. And so since anxiety was the first thing that led you to seeking help, seeking healing, seeking answers, how does that play into the type of coaching you do?
Yeah, well, so with every client that I work with, I lay the groundwork of IFS first, so that they have an idea of what their experience is, and like what's happening for them. Even if we go different routes later on, that's like where I bring them, because it provides a framework. And
Yeah, for
then
sure.
being, somebody who's experienced anxiety myself, and worked, over these past very intentional 9 years to be where I am now. It's like you said before, it's like I can only guide people where I've been. And so a lot of it is doing exactly that, but in a refined and smoother process, where people don't have to, go down different parts of the maze only to come back to another path. It's like, actually, here's what has like been tested and worked. Let's see what works for you, and like really just keep that path smooth and efficient, and give you exactly what you need and nothing more.
I love that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the training that you've done to become a coach, and why did you choose that path?
Yeah. Well, the ultimate training that I've done is living through it myself, the anxiety and whatnot, and like really going about all these modalities for my own interest of finding another place within me. And then to support that, I studied psychology while I was in university. Um, I've always found psychology to be extraordinarily fascinating. And I then took that psychology degree, took my own experiences with anxiety and the coaches and the therapists that I had worked with and the Tony Robbins events that I had gone to. And then I got a much more formal training with a foundation known as IPEC, which I actually got to meet some of our mutual friends at, and have been led there from some of our mutual friends as well. IPEC is, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget the acronym. I think it's Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, something along those lines, and it's about a year program, and we just dive deep through multiple seminars, daily work into understanding coaching, understanding the psyche, understanding like really what it means to be a guide instead of someone that's coming to fix you, because no one could fix another person. We can only be here as your core self comes out to give you what you need.
Yeah. I love
so
that.
that's
We actually realized somewhat recently that a recent guest of this show went to the IPEC seminar that you were at as like a +1, and you all got to connect. Danette Torgerson, for anyone who hasn't listened to that episode yet. And I just think the world is so small. Like, we never knew that we had this mutual friend, and yet we have other mutual friends that are connected to Danette. It was just like, once you dive into the coaching world, you realize just how small the world really is.
Yeah, for real. And what a great community the coaching world is. I'm like super grateful to be a part of it. And Danette was like, we could just take a whole part of the podcast, but Danette was an incredible person to meet, and also a coaching inspiration as well. And I'm going to just feedback here for a second.
Sure.
You've played that role within my life as well, being somebody who was in the coaching realm before I was, and led as an example when you had the Bold Life movement running before I had the Seedling Project, affirmed as a coaching business. Getting to see that painted a picture of what is possible and where things can go. So that was very cool.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually shared that with you since I got into it myself. Yeah, well, here you go.
Well, thank you.
Live and recorded.
Seriously, got it on record. I was an expander. Yeah. But on that note, I really appreciate you bringing that up. I appreciate you acknowledging that. And it just goes to show years have gone by, years of friendship that I didn't know this. And anyone who's listening, you have no idea how what you're doing is impacting or inspiring someone else, even people that you talk to every day. You might have planted a seed of permission, planted a seed of inspiration that shifted the way that they saw the world, and you just might never know. And so the only thing that I can really say is keep going. Even if you don't get to hear these moments of acknowledgement, like, just trust that if you feel a call to serve, there's a reason, and you are changing people's lives, even if they're not necessarily paying clients.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just living as example, you have no idea where your light is actually shining.
Yeah. 100%.
What plants are growing around you as a result of your light. Yeah.
Maybe passion fruit.
maybe passion fruit. If you're watching the video aspect of this podcast, this plant behind me is indeed passion fruit.
Things that should be kept off air. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Marcello, take me back to 4 years ago. We were living in Bali. You got the seed planted about wanting to start to explore coaching. What was the first step that you took? What was that first bold step towards this career?
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw us even further back in time. And this starts with our mutual foundation as well.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways to journey into this. I'll give you the best one that I can. So I was on anxiety medication at this point about 10 years ago. I was on a medication that is an SSRI, Zoloft, or you might know it as sertraline. And when I went on this medication for anxiety, I did not want it to be my reality, not at
Mm.
all. And because of that, I was determined to, again, understand my mind, my body, the anxiety, and so on and so forth. And that led me down the road of reading books, listening to podcasts, and so on and so forth, to the point where I was able to get off the medication. And along with getting off the medication, I thought it would be a great idea to create a YouTube channel to share what my experience had been like to get off of medication and the fact that it was possible for people. And so I created that YouTube channel. And I would say that really the step to understand my anxiety and create a new reality for myself was the bold step towards coaching. Because that's like really ground zero for the whole coaching thing. And then YouTube was maybe like step number two, because this is like, okay, I've gone through this experience. Now I want to share it and help others. And then number three is where our mutual foundation comes in, where I was told by a mentor about this gentleman named Tony Robbins. And he's like, you got to go, you got to read the books. I'll give you the tapes to listen to. And I did just say tapes because this was a long time ago. It was not on Spotify or anything like that. And I went to my first experience and I was surrounded by other coaches. And I was like, this would go great with my YouTube channel because so many people have questions on my YouTube channel. And that's where the spark was born for coaching. And then it wasn't until, years later that I had brought it forth and brought it into a physical plane of reality.
And so what is your current process for getting coaching clients? This is like one of the biggest questions that we get. How do you find clients? So tell me about who it is that you work with and how they connect with you.
Yeah, great question. My biggest thing here with everything is authenticity. So I work, the sign on my front door, like I said earlier in our outside conversation, is that I call myself an anxiety integration coach. So I typically work with young adults. It has naturally been more males to work through their anxiety and really come back to that core self that we talked about. The way that I have done that and the way that people have found me has been through my YouTube channel primarily. I have had a lot of people come through there because they're relating to like that story of I went through what he went through. I'm actually going through what he went through. So I get lots of questions and comments that turn into more detailed conversations that end up turning into, jumping on a Zoom call or seeing them in person if they're nearby, where that human to human experience gets to evolve. So that has been really big for me is my YouTube channel. Alongside the YouTube channel is just, Instagram and Facebook, which do play, a pretty massive role, but my focus has been on YouTube. And outside of that, a lot of it has just been, living my work and as an example, the best that I can. And so, the best place to start with anything that we do, whether it be you're selling your photography or you're, I don't know, launching a napkin business, is like, go to your community that's in person and connect with the people and have conversations about what they're doing and what you're doing. And then it's like, there's nothing better than just, the natural word of mouth experience.
Yeah.
And so both of these things have really come together to create my client base. And that's been the majority. The last thing that I'll add here too is that if I do see people who I feel can really benefit from just understanding anxiety more, whether they work with me or not, I will reach out to them, if I feel support would be helpful, and that's sometimes like a cold call experience, or sometimes it's just, people in the community who made themselves present in my awareness somehow.
Yeah.
So
just to recap, Marcello shared that he picked one channel a while ago and doubled down on it, and that was YouTube. And then the second thing that you shared is really just making the offer, putting yourself out there, connecting with people in the community, remembering that relationships are currency and relationships are how people get to know, like, and trust you. And then another thing that I want to highlight, you said, is people related to your story. They saw themselves in you. And I think that when a lot of new coaches are getting started, they resist sharing what their struggles have been or what their struggles currently are because they want to really position themselves as an expert, and they're comparing themselves to other people who look like they're doing really well. And they're like, well, I'm not like that, but I want to emulate that. No, share your story. Use your mess to become your message, because that is what people are really going to latch onto. And they're going to trust that you can help them out of where they are because you've helped yourself, right? So I think that, whenever possible that we can highlight sharing your own journey, we should.
Yeah. And that's like, I don't know if there's really anything more important than that, because it's just authenticity it's like we have this innate part of our being that just authenticity is very easily recognized. And we feel safe with those people as humans because we can naturally sense that this person is showing me the true sides of themselves. And if that's the case and they're not making up some mask, well, then I could feel safe with that person. And that's where it's like, it's really, for me, like, it's not about making the sales as much as it is about being authentic and steering my ship in the direction of where people need what it is that I felt called to do most.
Yeah.
Like that's, that I hope that resonates and that makes sense.
Totally. And I bet a lot of people listening are heart-centered, service-oriented individuals who find it really easy when you're starting something new to get tied up in the logistics, in the tech, in the to-dos. And if we can bring our energy back in and remember why we got called to this in the first place, remember how far we've come, and just share that, then energetically you become a match for all the right people. And they're going to recognize themselves in you, and they're going to be pulled in your direction. You don't need to stress as much about the money side of things.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And do you mind if I
Please.
jump on this one more, with one more piece? So, we talked about modalities in the beginning, and we started by talking about psychedelics. But I want to add here that psychedelics have been a very, very, very small part of my journey. What has been a massive part of my journey has actually been meditation. The natural psychedelics of our own mind and body that we get to tap into. And where it ties into what you're talking about now is last night, and every other week for the most part, I teach meditation classes right here at my house. And some of the people who come have been coming for months, like, and getting the experience over and over again. And it was in a class recently where I was like explaining, how either it was like how anxious I was feeling or how overwhelmed I was with what was going on. And one of the people who like, regularly shows up was like, you have no idea how good it feels to hear that, like, you have shit going on too. And the reason that, it might sound weird when I first say it, but like the reason being is like, sometimes we look at, the coach that has 500,000 followers on Instagram and think that they have everything together. But most times, I would say 100% of the time, I'll make that gamble. Like, everybody's just doing what they think is best for that moment in time and trying their best, even if they don't have all of the answers. And so I say that because no matter the coach, even Tony Robbins, like, he's got stuff going on. He's not
Totally.
this perfect altogether person. And we don't have to be those perfect altogether people to be successful coaches. Actually, the opposite is what attracts people to connect with us the most.
Totally. I mean, the stories that get people moved, whether that's moved to action or moved to emotion at events like Tony Robbins, is the stories that he's telling where he was struggling, or his family dynamics or his money situation back in the day were not good. And those are the moments that people get to humanize him. And the more that we can humanize ourselves to our clients, the better. I mean, there's so many people that I follow right now, people that I would consider mentors or expanders, who are like, yo, I've been going through it. Shit has been real hard lately. And I'm like, oh, thank God, me too. Like, stuff is getting stirred up in the collective. It is not just me. I'm not alone. We need that. We need that reminder so we don't feel so isolated. And your clients need that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like the woman that had said that to me, she was like, oh, it feels so good to like know that I'm like really not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yes. Yeah. I might be an anxiety coach, but that doesn't mean I don't experience anxiety.
Exactly. You're probably a great anxiety coach because you experience anxiety.
Exactly. And my experience of it and my relationship to it is significantly different. So that's what gets to shift over time.
100%. Marcello, I'm curious speaking of expanders, who are your current mentors or expanders and why?
Oh my gosh. There's really so many. The first one that really comes to mind is, I'm going to preface that. To answer your question for right now, I have intentionally been spending a lot more time off of social media to let spirit be my main mentor. And what I mean by that is, by spending a lot of time on Instagram in particular, I can get lost in like, oh, this coach says that that's a good idea, and that coach says that this is what I have to do. It's like, hold on. I don't need to like constantly be looking at that. Just, I have my own mentor in my body, and it's known as spirit. It's known as intuition. It's known as like that core self, that connection with, the universe coming through me. And so I've intentionally been, like really disconnecting from those fronts, so that I can hear my own guidance at a much stronger level.
I love that.
That might sound, a little bit conceited, like I'm my own mentor, but it's actually spirit that's my mentor.
I'll say, I don't think that God's going to take it personally if you turn to him or her or it, whatever, for guidance.
Right.
No one here is judging that.
No.
I relate to that.
In fact,
I
Yeah.
super relate to that. One of the gifts, I really believe that life is happening for me. So even in challenging moments like the breakup that we chatted about earlier, one of the major gifts is that it's forcing me to go inward. It's forcing me to be like, ooh, okay, how can I be the love that I seek? How can I remember what I believe is truth with a capital T versus what my trauma is telling me is reality right now? And
Right.
like, what a beautiful, I mean, it's winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. Like, what a beautiful time to be going inward. Sun's going down. We got nothing but time to sit and read our books and pray. So this is a great
Exactly.
time to be like planting those seeds and checking in with ourselves. Another friend told me yesterday that he downloaded an app to limit his time on Instagram. And I was like, ooh, bookmark that. I feel like that's a really potent habit to be implementing. And so you saying this right now on the interview
Mhm.
is further reminder for me that, like, yeah, maybe putting in some technical boundaries to put myself closer to my hell yeses and move myself away from the things that aren't a hell yes.
Right. Yeah. And I'll add to that tech piece, your phone, like if you have Apple, if you have an iPhone, actually has a screen time function where you could set limits. So my Instagram shuts off after an hour if I'm using it that much.
I love that. I did not know about that feature.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah. You
right,
can set
Apple. Shout out Apple.
app limits. Yeah, they're seemingly have us in mind.
I'm like, what's the catch? They want us
That's a
on this
good
phone.
question. Yeah, that I don't know. But yeah, so that does exist. Yeah. But yeah, it
So
is. It's winter time.
Well, and here's the thing, winter, great opportunity to go inward, great opportunity to get clear
Hmm.
on our hell yeses for the coming year. I just was at an event recently talking about, every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So we better be leaning into things that are only a hell yes. And I would love to know, what
Mm.
are your current hell yeses? The only things that should be getting your focus.
Nature. Oh my gosh. Nature's like just number one. My yeah, I'll just say that first. Right now, my hell yes is um a lot of space and time to again like listen to that mentor of spirit.
Mm.
That's number one. Um, I feel like that's like the most prominent one. It's like to say the other things are really not even like don't even measure really in comparison to that because that is everything. That's where everything comes from. But of course, coaching. I do have an exciting piece coming up on my offerings very soon, probably
Oh.
within the next month or so, in the realm of being able to be led through um, a bit of internal family systems mixed with nervous system regulation and all tied together specifically for those of us who might be experiencing anxiety that
Mm.
you can do on your own. It is self-led. So that has been a hell yes for me. Want to get that out there for people. And that will be on my website. I'm putting a general time frame of about a month or so.
Love it.
Um, you know, no better time for anxiety tools than around the holidays.
Oh, yes.
Uh, yeah,
And to any
yeah,
coach who's listening, like, pay attention to that. The holidays is a great time to start making offerings, because if you are clear on what your clients struggle with, you can speak specifically to that pain point, how it relates to this time of year. A lot of people need support. A lot of people feel really alone. So lean into that.
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Um, I was going to say before, like with the people who are mentoring us, Ram Dass has
Mm.
been a massive, and like you and I think watched documentaries together on Ram Dass.
I have his
Um,
book right here.
but there you go, right? He's always around us. He's right behind me on the bookshelf back there. Um, but he said in one of his teachings that if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. Like there's a real reason that, spending time with your, there's a real reason that the holidays are challenging. It's because we're spending time with the people where like those traumatic experiences were born, so it's like fingers in the wounds.
Yeah.
And it's natural to like constantly get triggered in those moments. So yes, really big time for support from coaches.
Yeah. And, on that note, for anyone who's listening that gets to, choosing my words wisely, gets to spend a significant amount of time with their family on the regular, if you find yourself judging your healing journey, your evolution, like, oh my God, I really thought I had healed that. I thought I was further along. I thought I was a better communicator. Well, recognize, just like Marcello said, what environment you're choosing to put yourself in. You're in the boiler cooker, right? Like, how can you get time to cool off and to breathe when you're in it so consistently? And to give yourself grace, give yourself a little bit of awareness, and pass that along to your clients. Anything that we share on this podcast, please borrow, like use that with your clients if you're recognizing that they are repeating that pattern and feeling like, oh my God, I'm not changing, it's too hard, I'm like constantly being triggered. Well, let's like look and see here, who are they spending their time with the most, right?
Right.
So yeah, beautiful reminder.
Huge, yeah. And I want to add to that too by saying two pieces. If you're gonna choose to spend time around the people that trigger you, just know what you're walking into, and be intentional with that time that you're spending there. If you need space, go for a walk. If you need to dive into a conversation, intentionally dive into that conversation with your whole heart. And then I think I forgot the second piece, but along the lines of, yes, the spiral we talked about earlier. It just had to like come back to me. If your old wounds are coming back up, right? If those old patterns are resurfacing. Kim and I, just before the show, were talking about this spiral. We might see ourselves going in circles, but if you look at that from a different perspective, and this is where reframing actually gets to be a blessing, it's the both and for approaches. You actually recognize that it's just a circle that's moving up, and you're at a different place on that time frame. And yes, that pattern from the past might be coming up, but you are in an entirely different place within yourself with new tools, new perspectives, new states of your own nervous system, that you can move through that with an entirely different level of grace than you might have 5-10 years ago, even
100%.
7 months ago, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The spiral always, I'm glad you brought that up.
I like to think that, every relationship that I graduate from, I'm doing so with much more grace, ease, and acceptance than maybe 10 years ago, and less self-sabotage, more forgiveness. And that is just the gift of time and also doing the work. And they don't call it the work because it's easy. This is another thing that's come up recently in my awareness, is that you might have clients come in who think they're ready to do the work, and when they realize it actually requires work, aren't. And as a coach, it can be easy to take that on and take it personally, but really using tools like IFS, you can see, okay, is a protector in my client stepping in so much so that they're just not able or willing to move forward right now. And so really having tools like IFS or whatever you find useful to separate yourself from a client's experience and not take their experience so personally.
Very, very, very well said. And I heard the word compassion in there, like that space, holding the frame and not like judging ourselves, is just compassion for the person being where they're at, us recognizing where we're at, and being able to just continue to hold that guidance, that frame.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Marcello, what do you wish that you had known before starting your coaching journey?
Ooh, what do I wish that I had known before starting my coaching journey? It took a pretty long time to start my coaching business. So I had the blessing of, spending time around you beforehand, of spending time with some other mutual friends and receiving a lot of coaching before I got into the actual business of coaching. I think one thing that I don't want to put a limitation or a box around is just giving ourselves compassion and recognizing that getting the word out there, sharing our story does take time. Like, it does take time. And I think when I started, I was like, oh, no big deal. I'm going to have a full client list, 3 months out the door after starting my business. And that really might be the case. That's why I don't want to say limitations. You never know what is possible. But just giving yourself the space and the grace to know that it is it's a progression. It's an evolution of your own growth to share what you want to share, to like really let your nervous system settle into that you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, and like holding that space for yourself as well as for all of the clients. Like, that piece for me is still something that I'm like baking into, and I'm a little over 2 years into like consciously building my business, and about a year into like being a year into being like past completing my like more formal education with IPEC. Like, it does take, it's like, building a snowman. Like, you got to roll the ball. You got to roll the ball.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think it's going to happen.
Stickier.
True. For some people, they luck out and they get fluffy, sticky snow. And then for most other people, it takes time, and we're only coming across them when they're like adding the carrot nose. We didn't see all the snowball rolling that they had to do for the months, if not years ahead of time. So really not judging your phase in the process with someone else's like level 10 or step 10 if you're at step 1. Like, don't compare your step 1 to someone else's step 10. And understand that there's a massive identity shift that has to happen when you are stepping into this, and have grace with yourself on that. It takes time.
Yeah, 100%. Can I share a small story on that really quick?
Please.
So I had a ton, again, this was many years ago. I had a ton of self-criticism when I was starting my YouTube channel. Oh my gosh. Like, it was just like someone was just slapping me on the back of the head when I was starting this YouTube channel. For the quality of the video, how I was saying it, the description, all of the above. And at the time, I was like looking at other people's channels, and I was, looking at some of my mentors and idols at the time, like Casey Neistat. And I remember having this experience where I was like, go back to their first video. Like, go watch their first video. And every single time, unless they deleted those things, that first video is a little cringy to watch. It's a little cringy to watch.
Very cringy.
And including my own. Yeah, including my own. So it's just like when you said don't compare your, step 1 to someone's step 10, like, really, like, give ourselves the grace of putting the whole thing into a space of perspective, Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
If you could leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom or encouragement, what would it be?
Space and grace. Space and grace. That's like really just like what's coming to mind when you ask me. Give yourself space. Know that you're doing exactly what it is you want to be doing. and the things will come. And within all of that is just a natural essence of grace, because by giving yourself space, you're giving yourself breath and room to get creative and room to tap into yourself and listen to that intuition, listen to that core self. And really that's, no real healing happens in the face of criticism or urgency. It's really when we have that space, that compassion, that grace, that things get to move through,
I love that.
That's why so many people, for example, have like so many creative ideas come in the shower, because they're not putting so much pressure on themselves to have these ideas when they're just showering. They're just chilling, and it's like, oh, by the way, it's like, dude, why didn't that come to me when I was sitting at my computer for 4 hours earlier today?
I know.
Because it's not how it works.
Mine come when I'm about to fall asleep. I had an entire stand-up comedy act come into my mind when I was falling asleep one night, and it was kind of relevant to being a coach and a little self-deprecating. Very funny. Very funny. And I was like, remember it in the morning. And I was like, I should write it down, but I'm half asleep. Gone. In some other timeline, people watched it. No, it's gone. I know. It was like long too. It was a full set.
That's the thing. It's like when we give the space, like there's so much incredible things that come through us.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Yeah.
Well, Marcello, tell people
hopefully
where they can go.
At some point soon.
I'll try and summon it back from my subconscious.
We need to hear it. We need to hear it.
The people need to know. Tell us where we can get more of you. Where can people go to follow you? What's your YouTube channel, your Instagram, all the things?
Yeah. So I like to point people towards my YouTube channel, because it's just like an arsenal of resources specifically around anxiety, moving through anxiety, which, by the way, might sound niche, but it actually plays a role in everybody's journey of success, no matter what they do, because it's some essence of just really self-doubt. So whole arsenal there on YouTube, with tools, concepts, insights, personal sharings. And then what I'm excited to be releasing within this next month or so, and excited to just be creating in general, is on my website. And you could find me there at marcellolagreca.com. Also, my YouTube is just Marcello LaGreca. You'll find everything through there. And then if you want to have, just more intimate conversations, ask questions, maybe you have a client going through anxiety and you want to just kind of spitball, or maybe you're going through yourself, just hit me up on Instagram. Instagram is also Marcello LaGreca. Just keeping it real simple, real easy.
Keeping it easy. Love it. Well, Marcello, so fun to get to hear more about your journey, and so good to get to reconnect. It's been a minute.
I know.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me on here. And we're all on our own journey, and I'm just grateful that I get to be a part of this community with you, and that you have played the role that you've played in me getting to be where I am at. So thank you for letting us put that all on blast.
Yeah. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, episode 21 in the books. Again, if you want access to all the show notes, head over to theprofitablecoach.com/021. There you can get all the information on how to follow Marcello, how to go even deeper into internal family systems, and anything else that we talked about on today's episode. Sending a big hug and thank you to Marcello, and to anyone who's listening to this show. If you haven't yet subscribed, I encourage you, hit that follow button on your podcast app of choice. We have a ton of amazing interviews news coming down the pipe. And if you have something that you want to hear us talk about on the show, do me a favor. Follow me on Instagram, shoot me a DM at the Kimberly Rich, and let me know, who do you want me to interview? What are the topics that you want to hear about that will help you to grow a profitable coaching business? We love hearing from you guys, and really, we just want to create this show in a way that adds as much value to you and your business as possible. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. We love you, and we'll catch you next week.